So a few days ago, Goji Center dropped some absolute heat. I already knew I needed to react to this, bro. We are going to be seeing El Gran if it was in real life. So basically, if you guys remember when we reacted to their bioaccurate bloop, this is basically that, but with bioaccurate El Gran. So that just leaves the question, what if El Gran was real? Probably everybody would be obliterated. Nobody would be in the ocean. Yeah, shout out to Goji Center. Let's get into the video.
All the depths of the sea,
El
very
Gran
few monsters rumored to exist could
Maha?
ever compare to the impossible behemoth, the Bloop.
The Bloop, that's
One
right.
name that took the internet by storm finally
Bloop or El
challenged
Gran,
the
guys?
Lord
Let
of
me
the
know in
sea
the
monsters
comments.
on a scale never before
Are you
seen.
Team Bloop or
Today
Team El Gran?
on Goji Center, we dive into the depths to explore this
I might be
titanic
Team
rival to
Bloop,
the
bro.
biggest
I don't
sea
know.
monster conjured by the thalassophobic minds of the modern age.
Yes,
Exploring
that's
its
facts.
history, speculative biology, and the nightmarish possibility if a bioaccurate version of this animal exists.
Yeah, so on the
And
thumbnail, that's the
ending
one
with
I
a very
noticed
anticipated
first. I was like, what is that?
Goji Center presents El Gran Maha Explained.
There was some announcement he was
Now,
talking
some
about
of you
at the
at home
end.
not familiar with what it is you're looking at here
Oh, I'm
might be
hyped.
wondering where on earth did the legend of this
Shout out to Goji
nightmarish
Center
horror
again, by the
spring
way.
from. After all, it took an ice quake literally heard across an ocean to create the urban legend of the Bloop, and sea monsters like the Kraken have had stories for centuries. So,
You gotta
from
think
what
about how
depths
big
did
the
this
ocean
terror
is, too.
spring forth? Simple, the most
Could be out there.
chaotic and wild realm of them all, the internet.
Yeah,
Yes,
it is pretty
indeed,
wild.
El Gran Maha was the brainchild of the modern online age, brought to life by animators like its creator Borisov Blois to make a new take on the
Borisov
classic
made some
sea monster
crazy
formula.
video. Yeah, I remember
Extremely
those.
popular in the Latin
fights?
American side of the net, El Gran Maha has destroyed submarines, battled other colossals like the Bloop, and devoured ships and divers alike across hundreds of millions of views, exponentially
Borisov's
increasing the
over
number of
100
thalassophobics
mil?
around the world for
Dang.
years to come. So, before we take a stab at speculating the existence of a bioaccurate rendition of this sea monster, one which technically could exist, let's talk about the myth.
It technically
first.
could. It would have to eat
Raw
so
stats.
much, though, dude.
2,214 feet, or 674 meters.
2,200
Jaw span
feet.
approximately 165 by 250 feet. Tooth length more than 49 feet. Total
Just
mass
from a tooth.
955,798,000
plus tons.
kilograms. That being
you
more than
kidding me?
1 million tons. El Gran Maha
That's so
definitely
insane.
lived up to its name, dwarfing even the mighty Bloop in terms of length and overall size thanks to a body over half a kilometer long. Nose
That
to
is so
tail, this
crazy.
Leviathan dwarfs most other serpentine kaiju,
Tiamat makes
being more
it
than
tiny.
double as long as Titanus, Tiamat, and Manda, while being many,
She is
many
tiny
times
down there.
heavier. With teeth longer than Godzilla's head and jaw span wide enough to fit him and Kong inside, El Gran Maha would be a
Bro.
force to be reckoned with in almost any cinematic universe.
We've never seen, like, a deep
and
dive
could
into
be
El Gran.
considered a living natural disaster on its own.
Always
As
just
mentioned
animations.
already, volumetric analysis shows that this thing might weigh well over 1 million tons. If it thrashed about, swam at the shore, or
That's
even
so
just
insane.
simply made a sharp turn near the coast, it would cause a tsunami. There's a good reason why
Just
when
because
it
it
and the
turned.
Bloop noticed each other, everyone involved wisely chose to do two things.
Go in
Stay
the
out
air.
of the way and let them fight.
Yeah, I'd be out of there in
Thankfully
an
for
instant.
thalassophobes everywhere, something like this could never exist in our more mundane world.
See, that's
One
what
of
I'm
the
saying.
reasons
It
you
would
don't
have to
see
eat
sea
so much.
monsters like this roaming about, even in the fossil record, is food. As viewers might recall in our Bloop analysis video, everything has
I
to
do remember
eat,
the Bloop one.
and everything needs
It would have
calories
to eat
keep
so
going.
much, dude.
Whereas the Bloop is like
Unless
a
it
whale,
doesn't.
its
Maybe it's
rival
a-
more resembles a fish like
species
an eel.
that doesn't have to
Most
eat.
fish are cold-blooded and don't need to
You
eat
never know.
nearly as much as mammals do, since they don't need to burn energy constantly to heat their bodies. How much exactly they need to eat can fluctuate a lot depending on where they live and how often they move around. To help you understand that not all underwater predators eat as much as you think, here's a fun little fact for you.
Bro,
Greenland
Coach Center always be
sharks
throwing
and
the
great
random
white sharks can get
things
to
getting
around the
eaten
same
in there.
size, but hunt and live very
Makes sense.
differently.
Talking about food.
Greenland sharks are cold-blooded and live in cold water, moving and acting slowly over an extremely long
what is on that thing's
lifespan.
eye?
A study from 2022 showed that they can get by on a fraction of the calories that a great white needs, but the
That made
greatest
my
of
eyes
the great
water.
whites with a hotter-blooded metabolism and constantly moving around still need a fraction of the fuel a mammal needs. Another study by David C.
Oh, no, that
Burnby
guy.
found that the amount of food a great white shark needs per kilogram of mass actually decreases with size. The bigger the shark, the easier time it had stockpiling food and traveling against water resistance. A massive
maybe
shark
El
like
Gran
Deep
just
Blue
barely
only
needs to
needs
eat.
around 4.5 calories of food per kilogram
That's
of
why
mass.
we don't see 'em.
That's about 5 to 8 times less than a human needs per kilo. And they call sharks voracious eating machines. Back to Gran Maha, though, we can see in the video that it is a pretty active predator, so a modified formula
is
for
pretty
great white
active,
metabolism
from what
makes
we
the
know,
most sense
from
to
what
give
we've
us an
seen.
idea of how much this monster eats. The results yield a staggering number of almost 700 million calories in a day just to maintain itself. If
Okay.
you remember from the last video talking about the bloop, you'll realize that this is a fraction of the amount the mammalian bloop needs, but still an astronomical amount.
Yeah, that's
Maha,
ridiculous.
however, is typically found in more tropical waters around the equator, such as the Caribbean islands. Whales here don't
Wait,
even
what do you
get
mean it's
half as big
found?
as the larger blue whales in the Antarctic
It's just
Ocean
there?
due to factors like less food and needing
Imagine.
to travel often. Daily, Gran Maha would need to scarf down 10 humpback whales and still have room for more.
I mean,
If
10
snacking
humpback
on
whales, is
humans,
that crazy?
The number is even more extreme.
Oh,
The average
humans,
human
they would need
contains
like a million.
125,822 calories, if eaten. This means Gran Maha
Maybe
would need to wolf
100,000.
down and perfectly digest around 5,200 people daily. And if
I
this
thought it was
still
way
sounds
more than that. I'm
remotely
tripping.
plausible, there's another issue. Arguably, the biggest problem when you take something like this into reality is not eating, but getting to eat. The biggest problem that something like Gran Maha might face is how it swims. Slithering back and forth in the water like a worm or sea snake is called anguilliform propulsion. Great for maneuverability,
What a
terrible
word.
at propulsion. The side-to-side shifting wastes a lot of energy and speed. Couple that with the infamous grin on this monster, full of big, empty, forward-facing pockets next to the teeth,
And it's slowing
a
him
predator
down.
bound by reality would have a hard time building up or maintaining speed enough to catch worthwhile
wouldn't even be
prey.
able to catch
This
food.
is why a high-speed pursuit predator like the
He
mako
is so
shark
big, though, that he
employs
could-
the
he could just
uniform
sit there
swimming method.
and let things
With a
just
stiffer
swim in,
body
you know?
and flexible tail for propulsion, this animal can move faster and easier than an animal with the same anatomy as the Gran Maha. So, basically, an animal like Gran Maha, even if it could grow to be this big, wouldn't be able to sustain itself easily, especially if it has to move like this while being able to grow at this scale. So, this makes us think, what if across the seas of space
What
and
if?
time, nature tried to engineer a nightmarish horror that fit the bill for this
See, that's the one in the
celebrity
thumbnail.
creature?
I don't know what that is.
Well, turns out something similar on a much smaller scale did once exist in the past and even has some uncanny families still around
Huh?
today. If taken to the absolute extreme with perfect conditions, the seas might well turn red from a giant maw. Cyclostomi,
Maw.
or jawless fish, are some of the most ancient vertebrates to ever exist, with meat-shredding
that's an
hagfish and
alien.
blood-sucking lampreys being two modern examples.
Oh,
Far
get
back
that
in the
off you,
ancient
bro.
oceans, one of their cousins became some of the most successful fish to ever exist. Conodonts are a whole lineage of jawless fish that roamed the seas in huge numbers for nearly
Jawless
300 million
fish.
years, with possibly the sharpest
That
teeth
boy
to
is
ever
so
exist.
goofy looking.
Taking one of these and allowing evolutionary natural processes and mutations to do their work would be a good start. In our own world, conodonts died out shortly after the end of the Triassic period, not long after one
Lucky
of the
for
top
us.
5 biggest mass extinctions of all time that wiped out the greatest marine reptiles ever. But in this scenario, a few of these razor-toothed predators got a stroke of luck. This right here will be the ancestor of our speculative, bioaccurate Gran Maha.
The
They would start out with a
ancestor
very
of
flexible
Gran.
body and minimal fins, just like other conodonts and their modern kin like lampreys and hagfish. Great for fitting in crevices and swimming at moderate size as filter feeders and small predators. But as these carnivores started targeting bigger game and traveling longer distances, some things will inevitably change. Swimming the seas in the way these small creatures do will not work too well for an animal that's really big. This is why we don't have extraordinarily large whales
So we're
and
gonna see a
sharks
whole
shaped
new
like
Gran here.
this. So
You kinda
as
saw 'em
these
in the thumbnail,
predatorial
but
conodonts
it's
grew
fine.
in size, their form had to be gradually restructured.
There we
Over
go.
time, these deep-sea predators would have evolved
It's a little
special
better.
muscles that flex and stiffen the front half of the body. This would keep their heads straight when swimming to cut through the water easier, with less wasted energy rocking side to side. Larger fins on the tail increase propulsion, and ridges on the head
That boy
evolve
look like
to
a
extend to the
manta ray.
sides and stiffen. This not only gives our beast the iconic shape of Gran Maha's head, but it gives a
What is
practical
that?
use
Oh.
in steering. Like the fins on a manta
Look like
ray,
an
tilting
elephant's
and
tusk.
shifting, these can help the apex predator turn on a dime and quickly redirect
I say
its
tusk,
head.
I meant the...
Over time,
You know what I'm
these
saying?
animals would adapt to swim using the Karangiform method, a halfway point between the two prior methods discussed. This is good for
Tuniform,
balance
what is
of
that?
flexibility and bursts of speed. But to grow larger and to help it in pursuit or ambushes, it will have to develop
Bro,
something
I just wanna
called
see-
pseudo-siphons.
I wanna see
Similar
Bloop
to the
and
jet
Elgron
propulsion
fight
used
in
by
a
squid, a trait
Goji
not
Center
usually
video.
seen in fish, but having a real-world biological basis.
Like the battle
Unlike
face-off?
other
That'd be
fish
sick.
which manually pump water in and out of themselves with their mouth, lampreys have specialized muscles controlled with synchronized commands from the brain. Water is pulled in and pushed out through the pores in a steady pace. These vampiric predators use this to help breathe even while feeding on their bloody meals. For our currently evolving bioaccurate Gran Maha, a more specialized, refined version of this trait will help out in filter feeding, and then was taken to the next step with all the water being directed out in one output instead of multiple. Focused out of a flexible cartilage nozzle on a swivel, quick bursts of movement out one side or the other. What first evolved to help with breathing has been adapted
Goji
and
Center went in.
retrofitted to help out with propulsion. But how
They
can
done
an animal
sculpted a
like this
whole new
evolve
Gran.
adaptations that are similar to animals like squid, despite being a completely different animal class? Simple. This would be another of the many
Simple
classic
is not
cases
the word
of
I'd use for
convergent
this.
evolution, where unrelated life forms confronted with the same problems develop similar solutions. Literally the same reason why dolphins and sharks have streamlined bodies and fins despite being in two completely different animal groups.
Shout out
In this
dolphins.
case, our
Not
bioaccurate
trying to
Gran
eat me.
Maha sucks water rapidly through the mouth and extra gill ports before being redirected and shot out of the siphons. Perfect for rapidly lunging out to grab prey and sucking in plankton and schools of
Oh
fish
my-
into the maw. El Gran Maha, as the urban
Yo,
legend
that
has
El
it,
Gran
has a
looks
pretty
crazy.
frightening maw. Well, it just so happens that the likely ancestor of our speculative Gran Maha may have a more or less more frightening set of teeth, depending on what you consider
More
scary.
frightening?
A likely ancestor of this animal would have been the Panderidus, sporting multiple rows of retractable, finely serrated fangs instead
Retractable?
of
What is it,
true
Wolverine?
jaws. These teeth
Oh, look at
and
that
the
one to the
interior
left.
skeleton are actually synthesized from
That boy was
minerals
goofy.
filtered out of the seawater, adding extra strength to their structure. Over time, this maw
I'm
would have
locking in.
remained similar, but as this animal evolves into gargantuan proportions, and as it latched onto larger
Just like a
prey,
Pokemon, my
these
boy's just
fangs would
evolving.
reach
That's his mega
frighteningly
evolution.
large sizes, helping it filter large schools of fish and krill, and if the opportunity knocks, it can latch onto and then stab into larger game with an extra deadly trick to call upon. We'll reveal this trick soon, but at this point, we have covered enough of this animal's ancestry to introduce bioaccurate Gran Maha's true form.
Bioaccurate. Ooh!
Ladies and gents, we
see
present
'em.
Colossohydrus uctena, named after the horned serpent of Cherokee legend. who inflicted pestilence with its
Colossohydrus?
breath
I'm never
and
gonna remember
shined
that.
With eerie lights.
I'm still
This
gonna go
jawless
Elgron.
fish evolved to resemble characteristics of its urban legendary counterpart, and we're about to see how. Measuring a possible length of up to 200 feet with a mouth gape of up to
Okay,
16 by
200 feet.
22
It's not
feet,
quite
its
2200,
largest teeth
but
measuring up to
it's
10
still
feet
up there.
and backed up by a mass of up to 260 tons.
And it's not
For
quite, you know, a
senses
million
for both
tons,
shallow
but
and deep water,
200,
the
I guess.
Colossohydrus
Yeah.
comes sporting not 2, but 4 acute eyes for picking up light
4
and
eyes?
shapes at a
All right.
distance. This
Sure,
might
why
seem
not?
bizarre, but several types of fish have the same sensing organs developed from the brain that function
Six-eyed
just like extra
spookfish.
eyes.
See, that's a good
This
name.
apex predator
Spookfish.
also can detect
boy
sense and
spook.
water pressure changes with the elongated tentacles coming from its face.
Bro.
And like many deep water fish, this can manipulate a protein called luciferin, allowing it to light up parts of its body
Yeah,
to
that's sick.
confuse or attract prey to it.
That's pretty
now
cool.
we can discuss the trick we mentioned before. Once biting into a prey animal, let's say an overly curious sperm whale foolish enough to swim too close, this predator has grooved teeth able to direct a potent anticoagulant venom into prey.
And he's got
this
venom?
trait is reminiscent of some prehistoric conodonts, with a different kind of chemical weapon also seen in modern-day lampreys. This
Yeah, I think
keeps the
Bloop would,
blood of a
lose this
victim
fight.
from clotting easily, leading to catastrophic blood loss. Large predators often hunt down large game using ambush tactics, attacking from below upon detecting an unsuspecting victim. Sharks, mammals, marine reptiles, and other species of fish all use this same hunting methodology. Similarly, as
Why
the
did I think that was
Colossohydrus' ancestor
this one in
evolved,
real life?
it would have adopted this same hunting methodology. Millions of
teeth.
years later, this animal now hunts whales in the exact same way. Leveraging its pseudosiphons to give it a quick burst of speed, Colossohydrus could rapidly ambush from below and leave a grievous wound.
Colossohydrus.
Even if the prey managed to flee, its predator would never stop chasing it. However, all big animals do not start out that way, and the young would be vulnerable to many natural predators like sharks.
Bro, the teeth
That
are
is,
so
if
cool. How they
didn't
just
have
move
another
around like that.
defense to call upon. The closely related
It's the
hagfish are
Wolverine fish.
sometimes called slime eels for a reason. With specific pores embedded in the skin, these fish can release a fibrous slime when they are attacked. Similarly, as the Pandaridus began to take form as the Colossohydrus ancestor, the individual specimens that began developing a mucus-like slime began fending off predators successfully. These would reproduce and pass on the traits necessary to fend off predators even better, preserving their lineage.
Bro, the
This
mega
slime
evolution
can
goes
expand
crazy.
10,000 times their original volume in less than half a second, gumming up the
Dang.
gills and teeth of attackers. Given
Yo,
this
get that-
animal's
I don't
sheer
wanna see
size
that
and
anymore.
volume, this means most attackers like parasitic fish wouldn't even bother trying to bite Colossohydrus, even when it
Colossohydrus. We
goes
gotta
through
remember,
hibernation
Colossohydrus,
cycles.
Colossohydrus.
This is an
I got
invaluable
it, it's
asset
locked
to
in.
have in a fight against another large predator.
Don't
as
ask me
they
in like
grow.
5 minutes, though.
Living mostly in tropical and subtropical water around deep-sea trenches, Colossohydrus would mostly spend its time switching back and forth between filter feeding in the water column, resting at the barren bottom during lean times, and
Don't blame
hunting
him.
large game at the surface at night.
So his whole
During the
life is
bountiful
just
times of year,
hunt
these
and kill
predators
things,
spawn
huh?
near the infamous Sargasso Sea, vast floating mats of buoyant seaweed full of plankton and fish spawn to feed on. Now note, an animal this big would be extremely rare, even given all their adaptations. It is likely
I
that
like
this
how they did
creature
the
would
Boris
produce
VL
tiny
Boris
offspring with
DL
only a
view
minuscule
out of the
fraction
helicopter.
these surviving
It was
to
sick.
grow more than a meter long. An even rarer few with indeterminate growth, where a species never stops growing, and negligible senescence, where aging does not deteriorate their body, could break 5 meters or so as apex
That's
predators.
crazy.
In most cases, this might be as big as they'd usually get. Certain predator species like Humboldt squid have built-in mechanisms to mature quicker and smaller during times of scarcity, trading in raw power for survivability. This might be one reason why these primordial predators survived as they did in this scenario, surviving major extinction events at a small size and then rebounding when abundance returned. And when conditions are perfect, 1 in a million of these sea serpents, perhaps even just 1 in a billion, can become true colossal sea dragons.
1 in
And
a
it is an
billion.
even
Sea
rarer event
dragon.
mankind might ever glimpse
That's what they should have
such a
just named
titan.
it. Sea Dragon.
In a world with this primordial of the seas,
El
the
Gran
Bermuda
Sea
Triangle
Dragon.
might have a whole new reason for shipwrecks. And who knows, given the incrementing global temperatures and deep water pollution, this animal may have to move further southward and hunt more at the surface.
Oh, no.
Bringing it into conflict with both humans and perhaps another apex predator of dark, gargantuan size.
Yes! Bioaccurate Bloop and Bioaccurate Elgron. To be continued. That is, well, exactly what I was saying I wanted in the beginning of the video. Elgron, not El Bloop. Elgron versus Bloop, the bioaccurate versions. Who would you take? I'm sure we'll see that soon. Thank you guys for watching with me. I will see you tomorrow. I love ya. Goodbye.